The Millennium items are a core part of the original series. 7 magical items created to defend Egypt, but with a dark magic that opened the door for Zorc to enter the world. Same items Yugi must gather as part of the key to returning the Pharaoh to his resting place. And yet, an archetype around these items or even Zorc does not exist. Let's see what we can do about that. The premise for this archetype revolves around the 7 items of course, but to fully understand the design of the deck needs a little more context. In Yu-Gi-Oh lore, 3 of the 7 items represent justice, while 3 are weak to evil, and the 7th represents both. Moreover, while the 7 can be used for good, such as defending Egypt, their origins are of a dark magic that required 99 human sacrifices. As such, this deck is a choose your journey. You can either play it with the good guys represented by the likes of the Pharaoh and his court, or you can play it with the bad guys represented by Bakura and Zorc. The monster lineup starts off with the good side, and that is the boss of the bunch, Ancient Spirit Pharaoh. Has a lot of different conditions here, so bear with me. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Cannot be summoned during a duel in which you have summoned a dark Ancient Spirit monster. Must be special summoned from your hand during a duel in which you have activated Millennium item puzzle, and you can only control 1 Ancient Spirit Pharaoh. So now we get into the rest of the effects. Gain 700 attack and defense for every Millennium item, spell, and trap with a different name you have activated during the duel at the time of its summon, so that includes the puzzle. It'll come out with at least 700 attack and defense, and then more depending on which of the other ones you have activated, as well as the following effects. So at the time of its summon, if you have activated 3 or more, then once per turn you can draw 1 card. If you had activated 5 or more, then he is unaffected by your opponent's card effects. And if you have activated all 7, then once per turn you can special summon up to 3 monsters with different names from your hand, grave, and banishment, and if they are divine, you can ignore their summoning conditions. So this plays to the idea that the Pharaoh is the one who summons the 3 Egyptian god cards, and if you wanted to, you could use it as an engine to achieve the Herakte win condition, but otherwise it's a great way to spam the field with a bunch of monsters to go in for the kill either way. The other aspect of this card is that stipulation that he can't be summoned during a duel in which you have summoned a dark Ancient Spirit monster. The good guys on this side will have that stipulation, while the bad guys will have the stipulation that they can't be summoned if you have summoned a light Ancient Spirit monster. So again, creating a divide between the good guys and the bad guys, so you have to choose which is the size of the deck that you want to play. Up next is Ancient Spirit Priest. Can't be summoned during a duel in which you have summoned a dark Ancient Spirit monster. When this card is normal summon, you can add 1 shadow spell or trap from your deck to your hand, and once per turn you can special summon 1 monster from your hand that mentions Ancient Spirit Priest, except an Ancient Spirit monster, then you lose 200 life points times its level. And so you're going to see here in a bit the number of different monsters, which basically represent the various Ka that we see in the Millennium World arc that you can summon with this card. So this guy isn't just representing Priest Seto as the art may imply, but really all the different priests that are in the anime and manga. The last good guy Ancient Spirit is Hasan, so his effects are based on how he is used in the Dark RPG between the Pharaoh and Bakura. If your opponent activates an effect that would affect a monster you control, quick effect, you can discard this card to negate that effect and destroy 1 card your opponent controls. So this references the moment where Atem uses the Hasan token to destroy the Hourglass token that had frozen everyone else on his side of the board. Second is a reference to the various moments Hasan appears to protect the Pharaoh from being killed. If an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand or grave, then make this card the attack target. Also, you must control Ancient Spirit Pharaoh or Ancient Spirit Priest in order to activate and to resolve the effects of this card, so either of the 2 monsters that were mentioned previously, and you can only use each effect of Ancient Spirit Hasan once per turn. Alright, now we start getting into the Ka. First up is Spiria, the Ka used by Isis. At the start of the battle phase, you can banish this card until the end phase, and if you do, you gain 1,000 life points each time a monster declares an attack this turn. During the end phase, if you gain 1,000 or more life points with the effect of Spiria this turn, you can add 1 Ancient Spirit monster or 1 monster that mentions Ancient Spirit Priest from your grave to your hand. So that's going to be the 3 Ancient Spirits that we just talked about, as well as all the various Ka that we're about to look at on the good guy side of the table. You can only use each effect of Spiria once per turn. Next is the 2-headed Jackal Warrior, the Ka used by Shada. While you control this guy, Ancient Spirit Pharaoh and Ancient Spirit Priest you control cannot be targeted for an attack. Meanwhile, while he's involved in a battle during that damage calculation only, he gains 400 attack for every Millennium item, spell, or trap you control and in your grave with a different name. So theoretically, it could bump up all the way to 4,300 attack, but you take what you can get. Next is seemingly everybody's favorite Ka, and that is Duos, the Ka of Priest Seto. When this card declares an attack, you can banish 1 monster from either graveyard and he gains 500 attack, and that is permanent. Also, if this card, while special summoned by the effect of Ancient Spirit Pharaoh, Ancient Spirit Priest inflicts battle damage to your opponent, Draw cards equal to the number of monsters banished by the previous effect while this card has been face up on the field. So the longer he lasts, the more attacks he declares, the more cards you get to draw. Next is Illusion Magician, the Ka of Priest Mahad. Your opponent cannot target Ancient Spirit Pharaoh or an Ancient Spirit Priest you control with card effects, and if he's special summoned by the effect of an Ancient Spirit monster, you can send one spell from your hand or field to the grave and apply one of these effects until the end of the next turn. First up is a Spellbinding Circle-like effect, where one monster your opponent controls loses 700 attack, also it cannot attack. Second is negating the effects of all of your opponent's spells until the end of that next turn. Next is the White Dragon, the Ka of Kisara, then pass to Seto. If this card is special summoned by the effect of an Ancient Spirit monster, you can discard one card, then target 2 cards on the field and destroy them. You can only use this effect of White Dragon once per turn. If this card is destroyed by an opponent's card, special summon one Ancient Spirit Priest from your grave, then you can destroy the card that destroyed this card. So kind of like how the High Priest of Darkness had killed Kisara, Kisara was able to strike back and reclaim Seto from the clutches of the High Priest. And finally, we have the Ka of Shimon, the Forbidden One. Cannot be destroyed or banished by card effects, and at the start of the damage step that this card battles a monster, negate that monster's effects, then destroy it. So he is unstoppable in battle, obliterates everything that gets in his path. But if you do not control Ancient Spirit Pharaoh or Ancient Spirit Priest, then you send him to the grave. So those are our 6 Ka, and if you're summoning any of them through Ancient Spirit Priest, then you're going to pay 200 life points times each one's level. So Spirit will cost you 600, Jackal Warrior will cost you 800, Duelist will cost you 12, Illusion Magician will cost you 14, White Dragon 16, and the Forbidden One 2000. Now we get to the Bridge monster, and that is Ancient Beast. Bridge because he can be used by the light side and the dark side. This is a fusion monster that is comprised of 2 monsters with different names, as long as at least one of them mentions an Ancient Spirit monster. Must be fusion summoned by the effect of Millennium item scale. So you'll see that here in a second, but the scale is the item that is used in Ancient Egypt to conduct fusion summons. When this card is fusion summoned, destroy cards on the field up to the number of Millennium item spells and traps with different names that you have activated during this duel, so that'll at least be one with the Millennium item scale. If this card is sent from your field to the grave by an opponent's card, you can target one monster in each grave except Ancient Beast and special summon them. Alright, now to the evil side of the archetype, starting with Ancient Spirit Thief. So conversely, like the Pharaoh and the Priest, this guy can't be summoned in a duel in which you have summoned a light Ancient Spirit monster. If this card is summoned and you control no other monsters, you can add from your deck to your hand Millennium item spells and traps with different names up to the number of monsters your opponent controls. So like how Bakura steals the various Millennium items from the Priest, the more monsters, aka priests, your opponent leaves out on the field, the more Millennium items the Thief is able to get for you. He has another effect where if he's destroyed while you control him, you can set one shadow spell or trap directly from your deck. You can only use each effect of the Thief once per turn. Next is the Ancient Spirit Priest of Darkness. Similarly, can't be summoned during a duel in which you summon a light Ancient Spirit. He has a way to summon himself though by banishing 2 Millennium item spells and traps from your face-up field and or grave. But if he ends up in the grave himself, no worries, because he can resurrect by adding back a banished Millennium item to your hand. Final effect is letting you send a shadow spell or trap from your hand or field to the grave to target one card on the field and banish it into the darkness. Hard once per turn on all effects. Now we get to the Dark Side Ka, starting with Diabound. This card's name becomes Diabound Colonel while on the field, just in case you want to loop it into the earlier custom archetype for Diabound, card in the corner. If you control Ancient Spirit Thief, you can special summon this card from your hand or grave, and if you do, it gains 600 attack times the number of times it has been summoned from the grave by this effect this duel. So like in the series, he keeps coming back stronger and stronger, but that can only be used once per turn. And then finally, also like in the series, if he destroys an opponent's monster by battle, it gains the effects of that destroyed monster while he's face up on the field. And rounding out the minions is the Soldier of the Dark One, who you can summon from your hand or grave if you activate the effect of a shadow spell or trap and the thief is in your grave or on your field. And if he's special summoned and is destroyed under your control, you can pop a card your opponent controls. So a good way to deter your opponent from destroying him, but you also have some ways, as you'll see, to pop him yourself to trigger that effect. And last but not least is the boss of the evil side, the Dark One himself, Zorc Necrophades. So there's a lot of continuous effects / conditions here, so again, bear with me. Cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by the effect of Shadow Tablet, unaffected by other cards' effects, cannot be tributed, cannot be destroyed by battle, cannot be in defense position, gains 500 attack and defense for every banished monster, you cannot control other monsters, you cannot deactivate the effects of other cards, and you cannot add cards from your deck to your hand. So a whole lot going on, but in a nutshell, he's unaffected by everything else and can't be destroyed in battle, and he gets stronger the more banished monsters there are. But you also can't do anything except attack with him and use his own effects. He kills all your other non-continuous effects and doesn't even let you draw, but you can't squat on him either in defense mode. As for his effects, he's got two. One is once per turn, you can negate the effects of a card your opponent controls and banish it. Second is anytime he inflicts battle damage, he gets a shadow counter, and once he hits 3, a la Venominaga, he wins you the duel. So the question is, how do you beat this guy? Well, the best way would be to prevent him from coming out, because you will see when we get to Shadow Tablet that it is incredibly difficult to bring him out. But if he does come out, the most standard way is to attack him to inflict damage. Again, can't be in defense, so if there aren't many banished monsters out there, then he's not going to be that strong. You should be able to attack and inflict damage to your opponent. But say he gets real strong. Then you basically either have to minimize the number of banished monsters in some way, or have your own alternative win condition up your sleeve. So go get that Harakti. Alright, instead of breaking up the spells and traps into separate sections, I'm just going to present them in groups since the Millennium items, and then the Shadow set consists of spells and traps each. Starting off with the items, the first one is the Puzzle. This allows you to search out an ancient spirit monster from your deck or grave. So the question is, well, why can't I search out all of them instead of just the Pharaoh? Because the Puzzle is the home of the Pharaoh's memory, so it includes his priest, and is also where Atem trapped himself and Zorc. Yami Bakura too puts a piece of himself into the puzzle along the way, so for all those reasons, the puzzle can search out all of them. Also has a grave effect that plays on the Pharaoh's ability to wield a card he needs when he's in dire straits. Specifically, if during your opponent's end phase your life points are less than 1,000 and you control the Pharaoh, you can banish it from your grave and take one card from your deck and place it on top of your deck. This effect is unique to the good guy side of the table, but rest assured there is an item that has an effect specific to the bad guy side of the table. And here it is. The Millennium Ring is the first of the traps. This one has one of two effects you can activate. Either bring out the thief from your hand, deck, grave, or banishment because you just can't get rid of Bakura. Or as the ring so often does in the series, point Bakura in the direction of the other items, i.e. it can search out any of the other items from your deck or banishment. Next is the Millennium Eye, a continuous trap that goes to the grave if you don't control an ancient spirit monster, but while it's faced up, your opponent must play with their hand revealed. Also has a grave effect to banish while you control an ancient spirit monster, then rearrange the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. The eye combos well with the next item, the Necklace, a quick play spell which can be activated if you control an ancient spirit monster by declaring one card name. The next time during the duel your opponent activates the effect of a card with that name, you banish the necklace from your grave to negate that effect, then draw cards equal to the number of Millennium item spells and traps with different names that you have activated during that duel. So it makes your opponent basically decide between not playing a certain card or giving you a number of draws, which gets better the more items you've played. Next is the Millennium Rod, an equipped spell that equips to an ancient spirit monster and once per turn lets you take control of a monster your opponent controls while you control the rod. Also has a grave effect where if an ancient spirit monster or a monster that mentions an ancient spirit monster would be destroyed, you can banish this card from your grave instead. The soft reference to the rod interrupting Ishizu's plans and saving Kappa from blast held by a tribute. Next is the Millennium Key, a counter trap that you can activate while you control an ancient spirit monster when your opponent summons a monster. That monster's effects are negated and then you equip the key to it and take control of it. Like the rod, the key has a Mind Slave-like effect, but the key specifically functions by redecorating a person's soul room, which is why in this case it negates the monster's effects. There's also a slight nuance between the two where the key equips to the brainwashed monster, which is to reference how the key requires getting close to the person to use it on them, but also when the key is disrupted or when it is touched. So in this case, when the key is removed from the field, the monster or that person affected by the key returns to normal. But the rod equips to the ancient spirit, allowing it to brainwash any number of monsters. The key also has a grave effect where if you control an ancient spirit, you can banish it from the grave to prevent any summoning from the grave for the turn, playing on Shadi's role as a Tomb Keeper. Finally is the Scale, a continuous spell that on activation searches out the Feather of Ma'at, and then while you control an ancient spirit monster, you can fusion summon using monsters from your hand or field as material. As for the Feather, this is a quick play that can be activated while you control an ancient spirit that is light in the Scale, and you can target one non-divine monster on the field and banish it. From a design standpoint, I tried diversifying as much as possible, so you'll note that each of the item cards are different types of spell or trap and comprise all of them except field and ritual. The other thing which I couldn't quite get to was making the 3 evil items traps and the justice item spells, but effect-wise Key just seemed like a better trap and Rod a better equip. Now come the shadow spells and traps, the ones that can be searched out by the priest and thief. First up is Shadow Alchemy, a very powerful card that allows you to destroy any monster on the field, basically offering it as a sacrifice to search out 2 Millennium items from your deck that have different names. Then if it was your opponent who controlled that destroyed monster, they can draw 2 cards. This is one of the cards I mentioned that allows you to trigger some of those effects that work when a monster is destroyed, specifically the thief and the minion, but it also gets many of your Millennium item based combos going. Next is Shadow Game, the field spell of the deck that blocks any attempt to negate the activation and effects of your Millennium items. Second, while you control an Ancient Spirit monster or a Zorc, if a monster your opponent controls would be sent from the field to the grave, it gets banished to the Shadow Realm instead. Finally, once per turn, you can send 1 card from your hand or field to the grave to add 1 of the costs from your deck to your hand. Next is Shadow Tablet, which once per turn nets you a draw when you activate a Millennium item spell or trap. Also protects itself from being removed by card effects by destroying a monster you control instead, so again triggering things like the thief and the minion. And then finally is the big effect of summoning Zorc, which can only be triggered if you have activated the 7 different Millennium items, then banishing this card and all of your monsters with a minimum of 1 to summon Zorc from anywhere. You can only activate 1 Shadow Tablet per duel. Next is Shadow Hourglass, which encompasses the 3 Hourglass token effects Bakura uses in the Dark RPG in the anime, so bear with me on this block of text. Each effect can only be used once per duel, and you must control a Dark Ancient Spirit, so the Thief or High Priest, to activate and to resolve the second and third effects. So that first effect allows you to special summon 1 Ancient Spirit Thief from your grave that was sent there by an opponent's card that turn, then your life points become 8,000, so it's the reversal Hourglass effect. The second one is the Hourglass that freezes time, so for the rest of the turn, monster your opponent control cannot declare an attack and their effects are negated. And then finally is the third Hourglass, specifically how it is used in the anime, where Bakura is able to summon Zorc despite not having the 8th key, the Pharaoh's name, to be able to call him forth. This allows you to send 1 Millennium item spell or trap from your hand or deck to the grave to treat that card as having been activated by you this duel. So basically, if you haven't activated all 7, this allows you to activate that 7th to be able to meet the condition of Shadow Tablet to summon Zorc. Also, it allows you to place 1 Shadow Tablet from your deck or grave on your field in a spell or trap zone, and it is specifically worded as place to get around the restriction that Shadow Tablet itself has that it can only be activated once per duel. So if your opponent is able to get rid of it before you get out Zorc, this Hourglass allows you another way to bring out Shadow Tablet to have another crack at it. And finally, there is Shadow Soul, which negates any effect that targets a Dark Fiend monster you control. You can also banish it from your grave and target 1 monster your opponent controls, and during the next standby phase, if that target is still face up, you can summon Ancient Spirit Thief from your grave or banishment. This is referencing how Bakura places a piece of himself in others and then resurfaces at a moment's notice. So splitting up the archetype into the good and bad sides, this is what it looks like. The items, some of the shadow cards, and the fusion can be used by both sides. The good side has more monsters and Ka to work with, while the bad side has more shadow spells and traps to work with. For this demonstration, instead of doing solo test 10, since we essentially got 2 decks here, I'm going to pit both sides of them against each other. Bakura versus Atem, round 942. Let's go. We're going to start off opening with the Pharaoh side of the deck. So opening up with Pendant is always good to see. You can grab any of the Ancient Spirits. We'll grab the Priest. Priest on summon will grab a Shadow Spell or Trap that can start going into Shadow Alchemy, which will open up the slew of Millennium item options. Activate the Priest's other effect to summon a monster that mentions it, so one of the Kas. Bring out the White Dragon, take 1600 in life points since it's at level 8. Use Shadow Alchemy to destroy 1 monster in the field. Destroy that White Dragon to grab 2 Millennium items. We'll grab the necklace and grab the eye. Always too good to pair them with each other since the eye gives you knowledge in your opponent's hand, and then you can declare whichever card is appropriate with necklace to negate the effect when their opponent decides whether or not to activate it. Activates the Millennium Scale, can grab on activation the Feather of Ma'at. So pretty robust opening here for the Pharaoh side. We have the Feather of Ma'at, which can banish a monster the opponent controls as long as it's not a Divine Beast, since we control a Light Ancient Spirit and the Millennium Scale. We have the Key, which will be able to negate a monster's effects on summon and then take control of it. Millennium Eye giving hand knowledge, and then Millennium Necklace to be able to block off effects. Pass to Bakura. Right, immediately activate that eye to look at the opponent's hand, and we see that there's 2 pendants, 2 puzzles, and 2 rings, so likely going to declare what the necklace, the ring. So the ring is especially helpful on the Bakura side of the table since it not only searches out a Millennium item, but it also summons the Ancient Spirit Thief, so good idea to block that off. Activates the puzzle to search out the thief. Summons the thief, and that is going to activate its effect, but it will be negated and take control of using the Millennium key. Typically, you can't use both of these guys in the same deck, but I guess this is one loophole around that, controlling now the priest and the thief. Set 2, both the rings. Again, the first time one of them is activated, necklace will trigger, giving Pharaoh a number of draws. That's up to, I believe, 5 now, since 5 Millennium items have been activated. Draws Illusion Magician. Activates Millennium Scale to fuse Thief and Exodia. It's kind of interesting, confusing Zorc and Exodia essentially, to bring out Ancient Beast. So since it has activated 5 Millennium items with different names, can destroy up to 5 cards on the field. We'll destroy those 2 set rings. Probably best not to activate them to trigger necklace, so it's just going to have to take the hit there. Priest activates its effect to summon Illusion Magician from the hand, takes 1400 in life since it's a level 7. Illusion Magician activates its effect on summon, can send a spell from hand or field to the grave to activate its second effect, negating the effects of our opponent's spells until the end of the next turn. So sends that scale to the grave to trigger that effect. All monsters will attack, reducing Bakura down to 1,000 life points. Pass to Bakura, draws Diabound. Eye still giving hand knowledge. Will summon Ancient Spirit Priest of Darkness by banishing 2 Millennium items from the graveyard, so the ring and the puzzle. We'll go straight to battle phase and attack over the priest, taking 1200 in damage, and since now there's no Ancient Spirit, the eye will go to the grave as well. Passes now back to the Pharaoh, who draws Millennium item key. That and that feather mod that's sitting on the field is going to be useless without an Ancient Spirit monster, so just going to set that key and pass back to Bakura. Draws Ash Blossom, activates Millennium item puzzle since it's no longer blocked off by the Illusion Magician stun on spells. Puzzle grabs the thief. Thief summons, won't trigger its effect since it controls another monster, but will be able to trigger Diabound's effect in hand by discarding a card to special summon it. Discards the Soldier of the Dark One. And now the Priest of Darkness will attack the Ancient Beast, dealing 300. Ancient Beast effect will trigger, special summoning 1 monster from each grave. So the White Dragon from its own grave, and then the Soldier of the Dark One from the opponent's grave. Can't summon the Thief since it can't have Thief and Priest be summoned in the same duel. Diabound attacks over the Soldier of the Dark One, and Thief is going to ram into Illusion Magician probably, so White Dragon isn't able to attack over it to go for game on the next turn. So it'll take the 700 hit, will trigger its effect to set a shadow spell or trap directly from the deck. We'll grab Shadow Alchemy. And in the main phase 2, we'll use Shadow Alchemy to destroy Diabound and grab Millennium item Rod. And the Millennium item Scale. Then we'll trigger the Soldier's effect in the grave since it has Thief in the grave and activated a Shadow effect. Can special summon it from the grave. Activates the Scale. Activates the Rod, equips it to the Priest of Darkness, uses its effect to take control of the White Dragon. So kind of similar to the series where the Priest of Darkness is able to turn Seto and the White Dragon evil. Activates the Scale to fuse the White Dragon and the Soldier of the Dark One to bring out Ancient Beast. So Bakura's side has activated 3 Millennium item spells and traps with different names, so it will destroy all 3 cards that the Pharaoh controls, leaving them with absolutely nothing left. Passes to the Pharaoh, and they will draw a 2-headed Jackal Warrior. Summon that Jackal Warrior since he's activated 5 Millennium item spells and traps, since there's 5 in the grave with unique names. On attack, it'll jump up by 400 attack per, so by 2,000 attack, that's going to take it up all the way to 3,500, and that is actually going to be able to go for game. So much like the Pharaoh, a great top deck, to win the duel and save the world. Gonna show another hand here. This is going to demonstrate really the strength of the Pharaoh side of the deck. So it opens up with Priest again to try and search out a Shadow Spell or Trap. We'll attempt to block that with Ash Blossom, but since Ash Blossom is affecting a monster he controls, can activate Ancient Spirit Hasan's effect from the hand to special summon it and negate that effect. So the search will go through, grab Shadow Alchemy, has another monster now to destroy for the Alchemy. We'll destroy that Hasan, grab Necklace and Eye, again 2 cards that combo very well together. Set those 2 along with the ring and pass to the opponent. Activates the Eye to look at the opponent's hand, and then we'll activate the Necklace to block off the ring. So just gonna have to set the key and the necklace, which aren't going to be helpful without an Ancient Spirit. Pass to the Pharaoh, who will now be able to go into a great combo here. Activates Shadow Game, activates Millennium Item Rod, equipping it to the Priest. Uses Shadow Game to send a card on the field or hand to the grave to search out a Ka. Will bring out the White Dragon. So Priest Seto is going to summon the White Dragon, not just yet though. Activates the Millennium Item Ring to search out a Millennium Item card from the deck. That will be the Puzzle. Puzzle will grab the Pharaoh. And now since 5 have been activated, can special summon the Pharaoh with its first 2 effects activated. Once per turn, you can draw 1 card, and also unaffected by the opponent's spells and traps, also comes out at 3,500 attack and defense. Draws a card. Priest now will summon the White Dragon, Seto bringing out his ace, the Blue Eyes. White Dragon's effect activates on summon, discard a card, target 2 cards the opponent controls and destroy them. Pitches that Necklace they just drew with the Pharaoh. So those 2 cards will go down since they are not live without an Ancient Spirit on board. And this, my friends, is game with the Priest and the Pharaoh fighting alongside each other to take down Bakura. And finally, to demonstrate the strength of the Bakura side of the deck, Pharaoh's going to open up pretty tame here. Just going to set that Millennium Item Ring to try to get things going on the next turn. Bakura will activate Millennium Item Puzzle, grab the Thief. Summon the Thief, activate Shadow Game. Uses Shadow Game to pitch Diabound to grab Soldier of the Dark One. Uses Diabound's effect to summon itself. Will come out with 600 extra attacks since it was summoned from the grave. There should have been a discard there with Diabound. Let's just pretend they discarded the Millennium Item Ring. We'll use the Scale now to fuse the Soldier of the Dark One and the Thief into Ancient Spirit Beast. Since 2 Millennium Items have been activated, can destroy that card the Pharaoh has on its side. We'll chain it, Ring to grab Puzzle, but probably won't have a chance to get to use it because now Bakura side can banish the Scale and the Puzzle from field and grave to bring out the High Priest of Darkness, and that is over 8,000, exactly 8,100 on board to go for game for Bakura. So that is a live demonstration of both sides of the Millennium Item archetype. So that does it for the Millennium Items archetype. Hope you enjoyed, and be sure to like and subscribe for next week. Zorc may be tough, but if there's one thing Duel Monsters taught us, it's that friendship triumphs over all.